Mode. Okay. So tonight's presentations, Quality 4.0 and AI, unlocking new levels of product excellence and customer satisfaction. Um, John is a founder and chief project officer from Global AI Supply Chain Solutions. Um, he has 30 years in strategic and tactical experience in business transformation, supply chain, advanced manufacturing, and quality leadership. Um, John's a um, well, your expertise includes the Air Force combat support units, um, and you got a whole long list of things, John. Including again, John is our Phoenix section publicity and outreach chair, and he's also a member of SCORE and our national AI committee member. And actually, we should probably add in there the ASQ AI,
Right.
right?
You're right.
So John is very well versed in the upcoming AI world here. So with that, I will stop sharing and turn it over to John.
Okay, let's see how well I can do now. So people able to see the slide?
Yes, I can see it, John.
Okay, let me there we go. So want to welcome you, and part of the reason I asked, I changed it a little and I tailored it sort of Arizona, but the way it's structured, you're going to find it very interesting because a lot of discussion within the quality community about quality 4.0 and AI, but I've expanded it. So I've really looked at what's going on in Arizona as far as quality 4.0 and AI and digital tools, which is really into this arena. And you'll find out, as I did, as I created this, a lot of interesting things going on within a state that a lot of us don't really know what's going on because we're like in one particular company and we're pretty well focused. When you do something like this, fortunately, Rob brought out, I'm a member of SCORE, which is a national group. I'm on the national committee. I'm soon to become a national trainer. And quality has always been a part of my life. And we just recently started forming the new quality AI committee. So as we get more onto that, we're going to be able to roll that out to everybody and what's going on in the tools. So what I've tried to do in this program is really it's honed in for Arizona, and you're going to see that. But I'm looking at a lot of different industries and showing what quality is, how AI is there, and other tools that are beyond quality 4.0. So I hope it's not only entertaining, but it's also informational, and it'll also want you to really look at what's going on within your particular areas. Because I noticed some of the areas, there's a lot of activity going in certain states, certain countries, both in the US. I'm not familiar too much with Canada, but I know a lot of activity in Europe. Oops, sorry. So for the presentation, you'll see got a lot of material, and I don't read slides to you. I think you're beyond that. I try to give you an idea of what's going on, not only what's going on within Arizona, but maybe the US or the worldwide in the aspects of quality or AI or the digital world. So what I did for this presentation, I really broke it up into 5 parts. First of all is understanding the foundation, then a couple case studies, then looking at industry applications. And I think you're going to find that very fascinating. And then what are some strategies that you might want to think about as you do AI? And there are different ones. And right now, what they're saying statistically is that 70% of the companies will be using AI in their companies by the end of the year. Now, this has radically changed because last year the numbers were probably around 15%, and there were a lot of issues around the legal issues and the ethic issues, which is now being addressed. So there's a lot going on, and there's actually a forum that you can go to that's national, and you can see about 100 different countries what they're doing. And then future outlook, like I said, we're on 4.0, but what you're going to see in the presentation is some of what's actually happening under 5.0 and 6.0. So the thing we've moved from really is the innovators. Now we're into the leaders. And in the next year or so, we're going to start seeing more of the masses adopt different aspects of AI and digital tools as we go. And so it'll be interesting people's reaction to different questions. I'm going to talk about the future, and at the last, and I've got them marked in the slides, and I'm going to talk to you about, it's really the appendix I call the additional, but I didn't want to make it a 50 slide production, and I didn't want to have definitions buried in that. So I really put it within this additional area, which I really look at as more of an appendix. So with that, let's launch this. I think one of the most important things to me is that there's a lot of confusion on quality 4.0 and just AI in particular. So I want to sort of level set everybody. So first of all, we're in the industrial 4.0 revolution by definition. The revolution started in the 1800s in England, and now based upon the movement of technology, different equipment and that, we now say that we're in 4. And why I say there's an interesting fringe, because supposedly in 2025, we're supposed to move into 5.0. So the interesting thing is, when I researched this, I found out there is no official body like we might look at the European body or some of our bodies to say, this is our standard. There's none in the world. So that explains a lot of why you see people in different areas within what I call the digital map. So correspondingly, every functional area that you go to, whether it's quality, program management, supply chain, manufacturing, you're going to see 4.0 initiatives. And I invite all of you to go out to the ASQ site, because there's a lot of interesting information out there that what ASQ has done in the 4.0 area. Key thing on 4.0, we're talking about digital. We're talking about being able to use equipment to slice and dice data to give us information faster. And we really want to go from a reactive to a predictive environment. When I started the Air Force, I got tired of being beaten up, and I talked to my chiefs and I'm saying, is there some way I can look into the future? I'm tired of getting beaten up at the monthly meetings about what happened. So now you're starting to see the tools go forward. So what I did on the right screen, and you'll find it very interesting, these are the 10 technologies associated with quality 4.0. And you're going to see them intermixed because they really are very integrated when you use them as tools in your environment. I fortunately have been used to, my background actually started with sort of quality in the Air Force, and logistics and systems, and then supply chain, quality, technology. So I've been fortunate to work in a lot of these areas in cutting edge. And so there's a lot of fun things that you can do with these tools that are really going to add value to your contribution, not to only your function, but the organization. And if you put your business hat on, it's really, how is it going to benefit the business? So you'll see that when I go into some of the case studies. Now, what I did is a little footnote down here. Rather than go into other slides and clutter it, if you go into the additional area, you'll see at 27, what I've done is put what are the current definitions of each one of these 10 items. Now, one item that I added a little more for was the QMS platforms, because all as quality people, we want to know what's the latest toys. So in slide 28, you're going to really see a one-page narrative on QMS and the platforms, and actually what are the top 5 QMS platforms that are now being used in the quality arena. So with that, we're going to go into this, and I thought this was sort of fun. You know, for some of us that have been around a long time, I can remember microscopes, looking at stuff, learning about SPC, and of course it was all reactive. Like I said, I started in the Air Force, and it was no fun going up before the wing commander saying what went wrong, and I couldn't explain it. And as we move forward through our evolution, especially in the quality arena, you'll see we're getting more and more into different hardware and different software. And that's very key. And as you define industries, and what you'll see, you'll see in 4.0, and then you're going to see some fun stuff in 5.0 and 6.0. But we're getting more and more of, we're adopting it. Then in 2024, we really went through transformation. So there's a lot of dialogue is if quality 4.0 is still active or we're in 25. But I can tell you statistically, not all of the companies have embraced 4.0. And some of them, I think they're still doing note cards, or back in the old days, I actually heard of somebody using the old mainframe computers a couple of days ago. So we're all at different states. And now we're now in 25. So 25, you're going to hear about AI, or you're going to hear about Gen AI, which is really a differentiation, or there's a new one out now, which is new qualifier, which is agentic AI, which is another evolution in the AI. So for some of us, when we came up for our careers, and I came up as a manufacturing person, I was really into machine learning. And so I was into robotics, all kinds of programming, and all of doing that stuff. So it's interesting as we now move into 2025, we're starting to see Gen AI, and most people, when they think about Gen AI, they think about Chat GBT. I can tell you there are hundreds of them, and all different flavors and all different languages. Believe me, I get to see a lot of them. And so now we're in the 2025, and you see the little robot down there, and that's how I feel sometimes, because that's the way we're moving. And I think you're going to see now more and more, we're going to see an acceleration. We're seeing acceleration in certain industries, and then we're seeing in certain functions. The ones that really picked it up the fast, which you would think would be interesting, were marketing and sales, because of the amount of crunching data and trying to figure out your customer base, and then how to try to do, say, maybe a SWOT analysis, if you're not familiar with that, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, trying to really look at it. But now we're starting to see it into the engineering areas, into the quality areas. And there are tools now in a lot of the engineering areas where they're actually using AI tools to help them develop new products by looking at their product structure and making recommendations. So it's really a fascinating world that we're in right now. So one of the key things, if you look at anything, and where AI didn't take off a lot at fast, everybody thought it was a more or less a techie tool. It's the engineers use it and that, and they never really looked at the value proposition. So when you're in a business, and I've been in the business and I've been at different levels, when you look at it, you're going to look at what tools can you use to enable your business or enable your function or enable your people? And this is where AI comes in. So what we've seen, and I've seen in a lot of the committees that I've been on, the more that you can relate it to the people with case studies, and it's a value proposition that's going to enhance different areas, it's going to be adopted. So now that leads to the first area of strategic advantages. Actually, this gig that I just finished, they were adopting AI because they looked at it as part of their strategic initiatives to go forward. So that becomes key as a strategic value. Operational excellence. I've used it as tool, no joke. In one company, I dropped roughly 20% of the inventory in less than a year, $50 million by using AI and different tools. So needless to say, it can be a very powerful tool, and I'll also optimize different factories and what you can do with digital twins and how you look at stuff. So let alone it's becoming a powerful tool to get productivity gains for the business and also for the functions and for the individual teams. And then the last thing down here is most important. We're going from a reactive to a proactive. So today I was on a conference call talking to a CEO, and he's talking about how you can use AI to predict safety, potential safety risks and accidents. So now we're going to, it's not letting it happen, it's going forward. So in the quality world, we might be able now to look at products and look at all of our analysis with all of our data, and then start being able to predict what are things that are coming in the future and how we might change that event. Now, one of the things I think is most interesting to stress is the integration. You know, we're moving more and more from the silos more to an integrated environment, especially with the digital environment. You have no choice. We need to share data. And with the AI, you're looking with unbelievable amounts of data. So give you an example. When I was at SAP, I saw a report that normally, no joke, took days to run before you could look at the report. And by then you figured out it's obsolete. When they started getting into the big data movement, the IoT and that, when they did the first final prototype, I saw the same report produced in milliseconds. So think about what you can do with that now when you're looking at different things going on. And then the key thing is how real time it's beginning into, because you're going to see stuff now. We've gone in from, oh, it'll take a couple minutes, I'm okay with that, where everybody wants to be real time now and being able to see it almost instantly. Some people want the answers faster than they're not through typing yet. So one of the things I want to make sure is that we really hone in on first is the foundation with the basics, looking at us principles. First of all, we've got to look at the people. And you're going to find out people have different skill sets. Some are embracing AI, some aren't. I had somebody on a call say, oh, Big Brother's here, look out, it's going to replace me in that. What we're seeing is more and more jobs are going to be created because you're going to have this kind of interesting AI and human interface. They're not going to make the decisions. The humans will still make the decisions, but you're going to be able to have the capability to process data a lot faster. And then again, like I said, the process, we're looking at processes, integrated processes, so that really becomes key. And then most important with AI, like I said, we're looking at 4.0, which is a part of Industry 4.0. There are people already in 5.0, 6.0, and 7.0. And I'll talk to that a little later, and I think you'll find that fairly fascinating. Some of the tools. So you'll see AI. You'll see Internet of Things, IoT, digital twins. If you've never done digital twins, if you're in big industries or even facility modeling, you can make a carbon copy And I first learned at United Technology rather than moving the little cardboard boxes around on what my facility looks. Our facilities team had a big 3D model and I actually made a digital twin of our factory and our floor and laid it out. And that was my exposure to digital twins. And after that, it's like, I'm a believer. And then you're going to see Edge. You're going to see more about, this is more about advanced computing, how we get information faster and how we use it faster. So looking at the framework here, I think the big thing to look at is sort of look at the low hanging fruit, but where can you make high impact? In fact, several of my people that I've talked to in projects, first thing they want to hear is, hey, we want to get the funding, support of the project. Is there somewhere that we can make a high impact? So as experts, focus in where your high impact areas are, that you can do it the fastest. You can do a prototyping, you can see a pilot, and then you're going to build upon that. And then the most important thing is, because of the amount of data that you're using, data analytics is becoming fast one of the biggest in demand areas, because you're going to see mountains of data. Now, one thing that I want to let people be aware of that people don't know. So if you're using chat, you're using Microsoft, you're using Claude or anything, unless you specifically say, I don't want my information shared, that goes into the universal pool. And if I might do a search, I might be able to pull sensitive information out of a company if they did not do that disclaimer and limit it. So I tell people, if you're going to use public AI tools, make sure that you have that disclaimer. I don't want it to go beyond that. And believe it or not, I'd say about half of 85% of your data might be accurate. So I tell you, be careful, because the term is your system could hallucinate on you and you're going to get all kinds of screwy answers. So do your diligence, look at look at what it's providing you, that data, before you go and scrub it and then present it as information to higher management. Another area, AI is changing daily, almost seconds, so that you want to look at continuous learning and improvement. And so there's a lot of free courses out there, and it's sort of like this crazy loop. Where does it start? Where does it end? Nobody knows, but I can tell you right now, it ain't going to end. So you really want to look at, go in and learn some of the basics, and then look at what tools are available out there and how they might help you. So that's sort of setting the foundation. Now what we're going to do, we're actually going to look at these case studies, and this, you've probably got stories like this going on in your company, in your countries, or provinces, or whatever your genomes are out there. So the first one I looked at, it was Intel. And if you're not aware, is there's a big movement within Arizona to make Arizona one of the microelectronic semiconductor capitals of the world. So our first big project, you always thought about Intel, but here in the United States, actually in Arizona, TSMC came in and said, hey, we're going to build 3 plants at $150 billion and the government's going to help us. So what you saw is Intel said, well, we've got to think of ways to up the game. So they started looking at doing nanodetects. And so I put that on the screen for you. If you don't know what a nanometer is, and I had to do this perspective, it's 1/1000th of a meter. So that's pretty small. So this is where they're using optical properties, they're using enhanced digital tools to help them in their inspection. And what I did here in the bottom, for people, they might not have seen it, I actually haven't seen it, but this is where what the Chandler campus, Intel's campus, looks like, where they're actually doing this work. So I try to make the pictures reinforcing of the presentations, but give you a scale of what's going on. And so if you've never done with microchips, I actually dealt with my microchips doing military applications. You're looking at some really, really crazy optical stuff to look down and see what's going on, 3D cam, and even more to what's going on. So this really was a really viable candidate for AI. And look at what they got as for the results. So one of the things I did here is, if you're not familiar with STAR, this is a methodology that really helps frame your thoughts. So what's your situation? What's your task? What's your action? And what's your result? Most people know their situation. They have an idea of their actions. They might have an idea of their results. And I really want to say, not results, you want to look at your value solutions, but then your task. And when you line it up like this, you'll find out it's a lot easier to put it in a logical flow. And believe it or not, it's actually a very easy way to sell business. I did this in one company, and I was the only one that got all of my submissions approved outstanding, other than line down. So it works. So I went from a par. I used to kid people, because we're in Arizona, the golf game, project, action, and result, where now the STAR methodology is becoming the best way to present sort of your case study and organize your thoughts. Now, one of the areas, and it's interesting, a lot of our people spoke to us about was, well, what about life sciences, medical device? What about pharma? Well, people don't know that outside of aerospace, Arizona is one of the top medical device capitals in the United States. So it's only natural. And this sounds funny. Coming from a high-tech environment, my first director job was actually in a medical device. And what I found out was that a lot of the medical life sciences weren't advanced in using a lot of the modern tools, where in fact, more and more they are. And in fact, there's recently just been a major alliance made between ASU, Arizona State University's engineering group, and the Mayo Clinic here, to help look at how engineering with the new tools can be more and more integrated into the life sciences. And when I say life sciences, that's hospital, that's medical device, and that's pharma. So that's the geome under life sciences. But here's a company trying to meet their standards. If you've ever tried to deal with FDA standards, they're an interesting, I won't say what I think about it, but it's interesting. I've gone through a recall. So here they're using AI tools to help into their research. And so you see it in the pharma area, you see it in medical device. And when you talk about medical device, there are three classes. There's 1, 2, and 3, based upon the criticality of the equipment. I've been in all three. 3 is you don't have the device, you're dead. 1 and 2 are a little easier. 3, very, very stringent quality rules on what you do to qualify your product, gathering data and submitting it to the FDA for approval. But look at what the results are they're seeing. Documentation errors going down, verification cycles cutting. And by the way, these numbers aren't abnormal. You're seeing it. If you've been a Lean and Six Sigma champion, like a lot of us been in our career, they'll say, gee, you could take 40% of the minutia out of the organization and you'll still have room to improve. Well, guess what? Now with the tools that you have with AI or digital, you're now seeing unprecedented gains. Next, this is really fascinating. So people don't know that one of the top areas of industries in our state is mining. There's quite a few minerals. I think there's about 27, but one of the biggest ones is copper. So when you think about copper, you think about these big giant mines, earth movers moving around and digging it up. This is what the new mining technique looks like in Arizona where they're using AI, it actually reminds me a lot of fracking. So what they do is they're drilling down into the strata. They're using AI tools for sensing device and measuring in that. And so, excuse me, and they're injecting a solution like an alkaline that helps emulsify the strata, and then they pull it up out of the ground. And these are the nuggets that you see that are going to be refined. There are still big open mine pits. There's some underground stuff going on. That's the biggest one. But this is more and more looking at a way very, very more towards environmentally friendly. And look at it's not online yet, but this is one of the first companies in Arizona in the copper arena using AI. And look at what they're looking at mining. 215 million pounds of copper coming out of the ground here. And what they're looking at their standards, 99.3. I think most people can live by that. Now here's people, what I've done too is I've expanded upon it so you can see the diversity of AI and the technology within the different industries. So number one industry in Arizona is aerospace and defense. Second, medical device and healthcare. We have the Mayo Clinic here. They're going to put in about $100 billion and expand their clinic area here. And of course, semiconductor. So we've got more and more going on in semiconductor here. And what we're seeing is we're basically trying to pull as much of Taiwanese semiconductor in here, where Arizona will become one of the leading hubs in semiconductor production, and in fact, in the world, if not the United States. And if you look at it, you're seeing, and you're going to see this a lot, you're seeing a lot of alliances and partnerships happening. So you see Intel, TSMC, which is Taiwanese, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA. Most people think of NVIDIA in California. They're all over the map. And so you're starting to see these industries more and more, and you're going to see it more and more, not only within the industries, you're going to see it within academia and companies going on. You're seeing a lot of that movement, and we'll talk a little more on that. Now, what I call expanded industries, still prime industries within the state, but look at what it's expanding. Automotive, people don't know that Pinal County and south of Phoenix, a lot of automotive manufacturing going in down there. And of course, they're using AI as a tool to look at their safety systems. And if you can look at the complexity, if you're getting in engines, or if you're talking about smart cities, smart streets, smart vehicles, on and on and on, you're going to see more of AI introduced into that because of the information it's processing. Again, mining resources. So when people think about mining, they see these big strip mines. And by the way, if you go to the east side of Arizona, you're going to see that. I was passing by one night and I said, "What is that?" And I said, "Whoa, that's a big mine." But look at what we're talking about. $7 billion mineral industry. So you can be sure the newest toys are going to be interjected. Agricultural. This is funny. I happen to know a CEO that's on a council with me, and they're heavy into drones. They're heavy into AI. In fact, AI is being used. I just saw a new demonstration of a AI mounted laser for agriculture, where it actually detects other than what the actual prime crop is, and then it destroys the fungus, the pests and all of that. So guess what? You're eliminating a lot of the insecticides and pesticides. So it's becoming more and more an environmentally friendly environment. Now here was really interesting, and I sort of changed the slide, but within Arizona, we have about 10 industrial regions. So I put the map up there to show, people know about Phoenix, Flagstaff, Union, and Tucson, but there's a lot of activity going on. And one that's really surprising for me that I found out was the Indian faction. There are 22 federally recognized tribes within the state of Arizona, and they're using AI. In fact, the #1 winner of the small business award last year by the SBA was actually a Navajo business. And guess what? It was using AI tools. And of course, the network itself. So it's everywhere. So not only in the metropolitan areas, it's also in the rural areas. Now, favorite for me is supply chain integration. Because we're so close to Mexico, there's a lot of maquiladoras right across the border, California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. So you see a lot of council members going, and how is it being used? And by the way, interesting enough, in the state of Arizona, the second largest community is Hispanic. And believe me, they're in AI. I had the privilege presenting last year to the Hispanic Council. They ran circles around me about the AI tools that they were used, and they were written in Spanish. That was interesting. A lot of international alliances going on because of just the global footprint. Right now, Europe is leading, has the actual first quality standards going in. We're going to start seeing more and more in the US as we're going forward. And one thing too, more and more end-to-end visibility. So if you're in a supply chain guy, and this is sort of my base, you're really getting into, you want to have end-to-end supply visibility all the way from the customer itself down to the wherever it starts with the source. And that's what's going to come on. So now more and more you're seeing integration going on. You're seeing the new quality tools being used. Here's a big one in Arizona, water. So within Arizona, we have really three sources. We have the Colorado River, we have aquifers that are down below the ground, and we have the aqueducts. And so there is actually initiatives on the board that if you have more than 10 structures, you have to almost have a zero recycling program of how your factory works. Interesting enough, TSCM, the Taiwanese semiconductor, says that they're going to have one of the first plants that's totally self-contained in water. Water is very important. If you go to any major event right now, you're going to see quality representatives from the state or from ASQ asking about how you're doing watering, how you're monitoring your watering, and of course, you're going to be using different devices to look at parts per million, what's the contamination factor, and that going on. Big initiative in other states, but very, very much a factor. In fact, I was reading today, there was a lot of fear mongering going about, we're going to run out of water. I can tell you we're not going to run out of water the way it's being monitored and regulated right now. One area, small business. So in the United States, small business is by definition less than 1,000 employees, less than $100 million. And that's a big chunk. And so the SBA has an active program going on. There's a group sponsored there called SCORE. I'm in SCORE, but SCORE has one of the first national AI committees. I'm on that committee, and we're actually looking at how we train businesses and what tools that we're going to be, what are the approved tools that we're going to be rolling out, and probably in the summer. So this is a big area going on. And honestly, we saw it more embraced by the small business community than a lot of the larger communities, because they did worry about it, but they weren't tied up with the lawyers as much into ethics and some of the other areas. Didn't say they weren't, but they had the velocity to get out there factoring. So this is a very big area that is developing at light speed right now, is small business. Workforce. So this is a really interesting thing. And for the people that are engineers out there, we're running into a shortage of technical people in that. And what I found out in one of the training courses I went at ASU is for every engineer, you need 10 technicians. Well, guess what? Right now, ASU has 32,000 enrolled engineers in their programs at this campus. And so if you take that number by 10, guess what? We don't have enough technical people. So we're seeing more and more companies now partnering up with the universities, whether it's ASU or up in Tucson, and really gearing for developing education programs around AI or digital tools and how you can use it in all of your environments, and particularly quality, because quality is really the last gate before you go out there. So it's becoming more and more evident within the different academic communities. This is something that we have to use. Now, one of the things, oh yeah, this is easy. Well, it isn't. And so what I did, I sort of looked at the implementation channels, and the first thing I came up was data quality. You can't believe how many people just do a data dump and say, oh, okay, I'm going to run it through. If you don't clean your data and go through it, you will be embarrassed. Believe me, I just came out of several meetings at my last work assignment. And the biggest thing was when we went through was, well, we didn't have time to clean the data. Well, I can't tell you what the answers were like and how we had very unappreciative top stakeholders on the information was there. So AI is a very powerful tool to go in and slice and dice information, to use it to look at parameters and get answers and actually look at corrective actions. That's a fun thing you can do with your AI tools. Cybersecurity, big thing going on. Aerospace, number one, we're in CMMC level 3 this year. We're mandatory inspections by the governor taking on, and we'll see how that goes based on the new work, the new environment. But I worked on with a Belgian company last year where we're doing level 2. A lot of what you have to do in an organization focused on quality, AI, and making sure that you're right. And of course, that leads into, do people have the skill sets going beyond the normal tools that we use in quality to embracing the new hybrid tools, the new technology tools? And of course, AI is in fact the leader here. And then, like I said, put on your business cap. And here's where a lot of people fail that I've seen. And I come from a technical environment. And the biggest thing is, who do you have to sell to? Guess what? The CFO, the COO, the CIO, or the CEO, or even the board. And guess what? They want is, what's their return on investment? So the more that you can think about your product or your tools or AI in particular, look at the business value it's going to bring back to the business first, then it's going to bring to your functional area, then ultimately to your team. And regulatory, now with the AI environment, it's crazy. We don't really have the standards in the US, so we got all kinds of stuff going on, federal level, state level, city level on AI. So the one thing is, when you think about your AI journey, think about what's available out there and what are the guiding principles. Like I said, right now, there aren't any standards. The leading group is NIST in the United States. So if you're not familiar with them, go dial them up, because they're leading a lot of the frontier in AI and what's going to be rolled out into literally the technical community. Emerging technologies. This is really fun. I said, look at slide 29. You got quantum computing. It's here now by IBM. More and more as we're looking at optimization, we're looking at, nanometers, stuff like the electron microscope. You need unbelievable computing power. And if people don't know, right now, Arizona is lined up to be the number 3 data center in the United States. There are more data centers in here. So if you see a lot of buildings with no windows in that, it's probably going to be a data center. Advanced materials, fun stuff. Think about self-healing componentry. So if you think you're having fun, actually BMW has different quality particles injected into their paint finish So for minor scratches, it actually heals itself. Actually, Smart Materials, Nike has got fabrics where it really looks at the elasticity on a lot of its different fabrics. And then of course, Edge, more and more we're expanding and more using that universe. Again, water resources, looking at smart water consumption. Everybody, I dread seeing my water bill and getting a love note. And then of course you've got your viaducts here, and we're leading more and more with quality 4.0 and precision measuring and metrics and KPIs and that. We're really looking up in the cloud. How can we use these tools for our quality 4.0, let alone our technology, to measure this a critical resource within the state of Arizona? Metrics, KPIs, hey, that's what we're famous for, is measuring stuff. Well, we've got our traditional one, but what you're seeing more and more, you're looking at tremendous accelerated ROIs. In fact, in one company, we were measured by best in class, which is basically less than 1 year. They were looking at ROIs less than 1 year. So you've got to get from this defect to this defect is going to give us more product. That product turns into sales. This sales gives us more market share. That's how you got to think these days. And so the more and more you lower the defects and you get a quality product, the more you're increasing your payback and ultimately your revenue and your profit to the company. And then a big one, if you're working on time to market, TTM, how fast you can accelerate it. I worked in a medical company. I was part of the engineering NPI team, and we came up using digital tools, AI, and that. Actually, we're able to launch our product 40% faster. And if you think you're having fun, do it in an FDA environment. Our future, not going away. As simple as that. You're going to see more and more. So if you're sort of fighting it, hey, you're going to be a dinosaur. It's going to go on. Like I said, we're at 4.0. We're talking 5.0, 6.0, 7.0. All of that is out there now, and you're going to see more and more of that. You're going to see more of this cross-country integration, and you're going to see the workforce change. So that's why, like, I'm part of the community and I'm learning and trying to educate my peers, because it ain't going away. So the more we learn about it and the more we use it as professionals, the more we're going to be on the cutting edge and be able to not only participate in the company, but get that famous thing called funding for our projects. Roadmap, best thing, look at a pilot program. Where are you going to be able to do something fast? You're going to see results fast, be able to sell it fast, and then you're going to move through a gradual process. Turnkey is suicide. You know, people have learned through the years, like I've seen, the more and more that you do that turnkey, the more and more. So you want to take an incremental approach. You want to look at a pilot program that's going to get you the most traction. Takeaways. It's a part of our process. It ain't going away. Cross-pollination is happening. We got to learn to balance people, process, and technology. That's where we are now in the future. It provides us a competitive advantage. Arizona last year moved up to the 3rd manufacturing hub of the United States. We were like 12th and 13th the year before. And start with very focused cases. And so, like I said, down here in Future Resources, look at our chapter. ASQ is starting an AI committee. So if you want to think about it, get a hold of me and I'll refer you to the members as we're growing that committee. And with that, hey, a couple seconds over, but any questions? Wow, I got an audience that knows it all. I love it.
So I had down here as our our initial comment to get everything going here is, I'm sure somebody's out there that can, give us some information on how your company is addressing AI at this point. You know, are you, as your company, embracing it? What are you doing? I mean, I'm 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 sure some companies starting to walk that path that's willing to share.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. It's just that, within your company, where are you at? Are you at ground zero? You started, you haven't started? Are people talking about it? Are they talking about AI? Are they talking about Quality 4.0? Or are they talking about different digital tools? It's interesting to know, like when I did the research, I was surprised at some of these industries that were using AI, let alone different areas. So curious to hear from the audience, um, what are your companies doing in 4.0 or AI? If you can share.
All right. Well, why don't you, you've got access to the chat, right, John?
Yeah, I do.
There's some questions in the chat that we might be a catalyst here.
Oh, okay. Uh, Food processing. That interesting question. I will have to look into that, but I would be interested to see what's going on in there. So I will take an action item to look at what's going on in the food industry. And so we're particularly looking at what? Food processing. So I'm sure it's going on because, like I said, there's so many industries going on, and it might be native to your state. Oh, okay. So, here's an interesting question. What do you mean by AI and Quality 5.0? So, what we're looking at is basically Quality 4.0 is about the digital tools themselves. Quality 5.0 is going to be even more interesting because it's about the interaction, human and robot, and what that means. And so it's really a new area. Quality 5.0 was supposed to start a few years ago. It's supposed to start now. There's only a couple companies I know that are actually into it. And it's really the human and machine interaction, but more of your robotics, that, whether they're human like or different types of robots going on. And the key thing is, it's not replacing you. You're going to find there's going to be more interaction where it might take certain tasks away from you, but you're going to have to interact it and still give it direction in that. Now, people will argue there's all kinds of new AI tools out there bring quality in that. But Quality 5.0, the initial, is basically human and machine interaction with AI robots and how that's going to work. And there's whole areas being developed right now in universities trying to define that. Oh, we got also here beverage and food. Okay. Oh, I love this. I'm getting homework here.
Hey, John, you'd mentioned going all the way up to seven. You had a scale, and I didn't see that. So
No,
seven.
I did put that in there, but actually, if you go back, let me go back here. So when you see this, you see quantum computing, advanced materials, and edge. This is really getting into your 5, 6, and 7. So theoretically, um, Industry 7.0 isn't supposed to start till 1945 or 2045, and there are all already cases of companies doing it. Like NVIDIA is supposed to be at 6, IBM is at 5 with their quantum, and I can't remember who was at 7. It was way out there. And I didn't really do that because I wanted to focus on this, but that's where it's starting to really blend now. We actually were saying, we don't have regulations on it, but we've got 4, 5, 6, and 7 going on right now, depending on the company. So one of the things that gets into the technology is if your company's going on the 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, it's interesting to find out what tools are going to use. So I purposely didn't put it in here because I didn't want to get it confusing, and that's why I just presented it this way.
Okay, is there a one reference in your reference list that would?
No, but what I can do is I actually put on a program for the Arizona Tech Council on the different industries. I will share that. It's public record of what's in the different industries and what this different evolutions mean.
Okay, share it right now or share it to how?
I'll no, I won't share it right now. If I have to go into the file, I'll never find it. I got so many files that'll go there. But I will share that. It was based on, where the industry's going, because a lot of it is Industry 4.0 is really associated with a lot with the smart factories, and there was a lot of qualification there. So I was asked to develop a program. So I developed a separate WebEx for that. So I will share that with Rob, that we can share with the audience. Like I said, it's public domain because we shared it with the entire state, with all the companies.
Great,
We
thanks.
can put it on the My ASQ Phoenix site
Yeah.
along,
Okay.
where we have all of our presentations and papers and so forth for people to have access to.
Okay. And I see Ronnie here says, you know of any tools in AI besides sentiment analysis that can help with customer analysis feedback? Actually, that is a big area in the marketing and sales area. Not my forte. I know some experts in that area that I'm going to take a screenshot of this so I'll remember exactly what you're looking at. But that's a big area that when I was at SAP, if you walk up to vending machines, this is no joke. It says, well, hi, John. I see in the last 20 buys, you bought this and this. Here's what you might look at buying here at the machine. But by the way, did you look at this? So you're going to see that in the Amazons and others in that. So they're really looking at customer feedback and analyzing it and seeing what they're doing right and what they're wrong. So that's an interesting question, and I'll see what I can research for you. Like I said, it's almost in every industry. So it's fascinating going to see what industries are using AI tools 4.0, what they're doing in their specific industry. Any let's see, I'm making sure this. Any other industries in that you would like me to explore? And this is good because as we're starting in the ASQ AI Council, we're really looking at, what ways or what industries, what tools and that should be looking at what we should doing. How would you, let's see, how would the predictive analysis aspect A will improve upon the potential? Oh, good question. So actually, I come from a planning background. So predictive analytics is a huge, and I say huge, area. Now, to say how it's going to improve upon that, I will actually take this as another action item. But basically, what you got to look at, again, first and most important thing is your data clean. Have you done data cleansing? That's the most important thing. And then what are you going to do? What are your outcomes going to do? And then what I do I do a lot of my predictive analysis when it's not in target, not within the KPIs and metrics. I will actually do a sort of a contingency and saying, okay, what can I do from to lessen the risk? What can I do to improve upon this? Give me ideas for methodology. What things can I do? That's how I use it. And I've come up with solutions far ahead with what the team's done. And I actually did that with my last assignment, where I was coming up answers 10 times faster than whole teams could come up by using my AI tools, by taking data and slicing and dicing it differently and looking at how can I use it. Okay, what's the next one? In a more low margin industries, where do you see low hanging fruits, easy projects? So not a quasi answer. So I've actually been in companies that had margins of 1% and 2%. So the key thing that you're going to look at, think about what I said. What are the areas that are going to add value? So you think about the business, you think about the function, you think about the technology, and you think on the technical aspects of it. So the key point is in this, what you call a low margin industry, is where do you see opportunities to drive the most revenue or the most profit or the most productivity? And that's where I would focus first, because that's where you're going to get the most attention from the top stakeholders, very honestly. If you come in, this happened at one company when I did an analysis and I said, well, I want to do this and this and this, and there are about 10 projects. I got the entire IT budget for the year assigned to me, and I did 10 projects, and we came up running 75 to $100 million in cost savings that they never thought.
You know, one of the things about low margin industries is you're in a commodity environment, and to
Yeah.
get into differentiation of your product through either clever packaging or clever delivery, or I can't tell you how you can differentiate a commodity product, but that's how you increase your margins and understanding what your customer demands are, particularly your customers at the edge, not the mad major people that you're currently serving, but the ones that you might serve
Yeah.
with a slightly modified or maybe even grossly modified product, which is basically the same product you've been producing, but doing a little bit differently and making it more valuable to them. And they'll pay you for that.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good point, because when I really started what I call my industrial engineering and blossomed out, I was in the aerospace and defense industry, and about 100 million plus business. So the first thing was we looked at um, process optimization, then we looked at automation, and then we had different great, and that's how we sold our board of directors. And after we got it going, I actually could not get my engineers to submit the requests for capital equipment fast enough that I could get it approved within a day or two. I actually had to turn money back at the end of the year because they couldn't write it up fast enough on the business value. Technically, they were whizzes. They couldn't write the business value when we were doing automation and all the tools. But I will take these items as homework or action items, and yeah, I'm a supply chain guy. You would be amazed. I just finished a gig with a small company called Chevron in supply chain. The amount of money was almost staggering what they could get by using AI tools. In fact, they were going to AI tools as they were relooking at their strategy. And transportation is a big one. Transportation industry and logistics are adopting a lot of AI tools for route optimization, tariffs, rates, and everything.
Have you seen anything in what we call small energy delivery? And I'm talking about electrical co-ops that they themselves do not generate the power, but they get into the distribution of the power, and they have to basically get a mix of sustainable and fossil fuel generation, and they're constantly looking at optimizing, optimizing, optimizing.
No, I think that'd be an interesting one. I'll, like I said, I'll research all this stuff in a matter of a couple hours and that with all my AI tools that I have on my system and look at it. But I wasn't really aware of that till I was up. My first duty station was Minot. I became a stockholder and I didn't know about these energy co-ops and that. But that whole energy arena is becoming a fast targeted industry. Like I said, AI is a powerful tool when you got data, you want to slice it and dice it. There's all kinds of stuff now, AI with Excel and what you can do with it. So I'm interested to look at some of the questions and see what kind of answers I can come up with.
Excellent presentation, John. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everybody, and yeah, feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions. And if I don't know, I will go get you the answer. I'm very, very networked into the AI community and beyond that into a lot of it. My background's really supply chain and materials, and I've been a supplier quality engineer. So anything, new toys, new tools, I'm always fascinated in that. So I will definitely have those answers out to you. So I will stop sharing, Rob, and turn it back to you. How's that?
Okay. Any other last minute questions or anything for John? I'm looking at the chat. It looks like the questions have tapered off.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is we've really just started the journey. You're going to see more and more evolution. So I encourage you, uh, go play with the tools. There's a lot of free training out there. Um, I'll leave you with my famous prompt for you that are in AI. So when I first suggested this to a national council, everybody laughed at me. It became my #1 prompt. The last prompt I always do is when I get through is there anything I missed? And you will be amazed at the amount of information that you get on what you might have missed, because your prompt is really the key to what your information is. So think about that as a prompt. Here's another one for you. Put your word salad into the prompt if you're using it. All your words, you don't know how to write a prompt. That's all right. Put it all into what I call a word salad. Your last sentence says, I know this isn't a prompt. I want you to write it as a prompt that I could use into my AI tool. It will structure it to make it a proper prompt and cut and paste that and then put it back into your AI tool that you're using, and you'll find out you're probably going to get your answer.
Interesting technique. Ah, 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 ah. That's a real gem, John.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And for all of you, I'm on LinkedIn. A lot of presentations that I write and I give, I put on my LinkedIn profile. And so you're more than welcome. Go on there, just say, hey, hey, I want to link in. And please feel free to ask any questions. I learn as much as the next person, because like I said, it's an evolving career field, and it's an exciting career field as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We lose Rob?
No, I'm here. I just want to make sure before we capture any questions or comments before I turn off the recording and we just proceed with our um, section this section updates, like whatever. What's going on, meetings and so forth.
Yep.
So has everybody had their chance to ask a question of John or make a comment?
When will John's presentation this evening be posted to my ASQ?
That's a good question. I don't know the logistics of that, Rob, how they do it.
Well, I got Barb's on here, so.
Oh, okay, Barb.
Um, Quality Bob has usually been posting the presentations, but I can post it too if I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll Rob's got it, and then I can send it out to you after the meeting, so
Yeah,
you've
send it
got it.
out to me and I will make a stab at filing it and putting in a blog about it, okay, with a link to the presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be great. There's so much information packed into this presentation. I think you've got at least 2 presentations here, John, and I need to go back over it, man. I'll tell you, it just just jam packed with
Oh
good.
no, they kid me about that. That's why I try to talk more to the slides, but I wanted it to be educational as well as looking at sources and what's going on. And so I keep it at a high enough level to make the time, but there's so much on, I try to make it as distinct enough and maybe not go more than like 1 level deep because there's a lot of information in there. You're right.
Yeah, yeah, very much. Okay. Thanks, Barb, for doing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll do that because I don't think Quality Bob's back home yet.
Now, I think he's still in Korea or on the boat.
He was sending emails about an hour ago.
No.
Some of the chat, you had some chapter business and he was responding. So
Yeah, he responds
not by the pool
well.
drinking margaritas. All right. So I guess I'll shut the recording off at this point. Let's see.